Hi, this is Mark from MoreBikes, and today we're fitting the Sena 60S motorcycle mesh communication system. So for this, you'll need a clear space that's well lit. We recommend a helmet donut, the system itself, of course, and, again, of course, a lid.
Okay, first things first, you've got to get yourself organised. So what I've done here is, if you look over here, I've got all the packaging, a box on one side, and then I've got all the bits and bobs here laid out. Now you get lots and lots of different options for different ways of fitting to different sorts of helmets. You've also got different fascias here for the unit. You've got the unit itself. You've got different dial options here with colours on. You've got speaker options here. You've got different microphone, microphone options here. You've got various covers for the microphone booms here, and you've got all the fixtures and fittings laid out, and that's the power cable, speaker cable, etc. So it's important to get everything laid out first so you can choose what you need when you need it. Now this is why whenever I'm doing anything with a helmet, I always recommend use of one of these helmet donuts here, a squidgy beanbag effort. But the great thing about this is you can plonk your lid on, and whichever way you want to put it to work on, clean or fit things, it sits there perfectly without going anywhere and without getting scratched. So the first thing I do is look for somewhere where you're going to be able to mount your speakers, and usually inside the helmets, where next to where the ears goes, there is a little recess where we can fit them in, and I can feel it. So what we then need to do is to pop the cheek pad out so we can see that, and that will also help when we're hiding the wires. And normally there are plastic press studs, usually 2 or 3 of them, that keeps this in place. So if I just feel inside here, and I can feel the resistance where it is, just pop 1, pop 2, and pop 3rd, and then this cheek pad then comes out a little bit. Can you see the press studs in there? So now from this angle, we can pull that down, and then there, in there, you can see the recess. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this 3M mount, and that's going to go in there. And then on top of that, we're going to have one of these, which is going to allow the speakers to sit kind of proud from the recess against your ears. So that's the sticky Velcro mount in place, as you can see. And then we're just going to pop this nicely on top there. There we go. Now that is now ready for when we come to put the speaker on it soon. Okay, so that sits nicely in the recess. That's in both sides now. And when you push the cheek pad back in and pop these studs back in, there's a little flap here which goes over where the speakers will be. So what will be against your ear will be the material of the lid. Okay, let me just zoom out so you can get this into perspective. There we go. That's the back of the lid on this occasion. So that just sits right where your ears go. So one thing that puzzled me was, in the box, why there were 2 sets of speakers and apparently 2 mounts. So I was scratching my head for a bit. Then I realised the lovely people at Sena have enabled this to be mounted on 2 different helmets. So if you've got a couple of lids, there you go. How cool is that? Now before we fit the unit, I'm going to replace the fascia on this, because you get a choice, the one that's on it, kind of a, I don't know, sort of shiny chrome look almost, I think. Then we've got a bit of a silver one here, a white one and a black one. And the dials, which replace this one here, also match. So because we are using this lid, I think I'm going to choose the white one. So first of all, we've got to figure out how to get this fascia off replace it with a new one without snapping it. So first thing we're going to do is to replace the fascia on the dial for the white one. And what you have to do is turn this until you can find this little indentation in here, and then lever that off very carefully like so. You can see how it separates from here, so just very carefully pop that off with the thumb. So I've chosen the white one here, and if we look around, can you see that little groove in there? Well, that gets lined up with a nodule here with that arrow like so, and that just then pops onto place, and we've got a white dial. Very nice. Now it's time to replace this one with the white one. So the first thing I'm going to do is to pop the aerial up by pulling that out so we can get access to this bit here. And it's got 3 little clips here, here and here at the bottom where it just clips into place. Now you have to be very careful, but what they tell you to do is to push on the dial and to push the middle off. I found that quite fiddly to do. So what I've done here is I've just levered off the first bit there, and I've very carefully just pulled that until it's clipped off. But that does bend when you do that. So if you can push it from the middle, great. If you push it from the side like I did, and to be honest with you, that's the only way I could manage to get it off, then, you know, just be very careful when you're pushing on that. I'm sure once you've fitted this a couple of times, it'll be easier. But it has come off, and now it's time to just pop the white one on. What we then do is pop the bottom of this into here like that. So that goes in at the bottom, and the other 2 just click into place like that. And there we have a customized unit. Now that's pretty cool, isn't it? Especially if you've got a white lid or white accents on it like I have with mine. So in the first part of the video, the mounting pads were put in place. These are the Harman Kardon speakers, which go onto the mount pad here. That's a little bit like plasticky velcro-y stuff on that, so that'll go inside. As you can see, it's one complete unit with the speakers already fitted and a wired boom in place. So that should be very easy to fit. It's all a case of popping it on the side and hiding the wires. And what I've done, so as not to confuse the issue, if I just pan around here, I've got everything else that I'm not going to need out the way on the windowsill so as not to confuse it. So I've just left the helmet on the helmet donut and the unit. Well, the sun is out now, and I'm just working out how to detach the Sena from the mounting unit. And there's a little bit of a clue here, because it actually says, if you see on there, it says push upward to remove main unit, where you get your thumbs and you push upwards and it comes off. And the surprise I got when you go to put it back on, oh, flipping heck, it snatches it off you. Why does it do that? Because it's magnetic. That's pretty cool, actually. Now, let's crack on and do the final piece, which is fitting this to the lid. So it's time to fit the unit to the helmet. And it goes on the left-hand side of the lid. And if we turn this upside down, you can see here this clip is very springy and very strong, and that is designed, I use the boom to illustrate, to go in between the lining and the casing of the lid like that. So it goes in there. Now, and we popped off those studs earlier, well, this should pull out to allow us access to the gap in here. Let's take a look. So you can see here that the cheek pad does indeed lift out. This flap that's against my thumb pushes back into here, and most helmets do this to allow you to take the cheek pads out and to actually wash them. So now we've just got to get this into about there. So let's give it a go. And what you can actually do with this particular helmet, and look for this on yours, if it's really tight, to slide that this clip in here, you can sometimes, if you've popped the press studs, just pull this out a wee bit here to make room. So now that should just slip straight in. So what I've done, just so you can see, is I've taken the cheek pad off, just leaving this bit here, and you can see now with a good bit of pushing, because that is really tight, but it needs to be to stay on. That has gone beautifully in place. Now, I did actually pop the unit off. It's magnetic, don't forget. I popped that unit off for ease of use to make that easier to get on there, and it has gone on there a treat, and that isn't going anywhere soon. So now what I've just got to do is push all this back in place, and the boom is quite good actually, because even though you'd normally associate a boom like this with an open face helmet or a flip helmet, that will actually go inside here, so you can position it wherever you like inside the lid, which is, I think, is pretty good. Well, we're testing it out, of course. So let's get this back in place. So this bit here has actually pushed into place nicely, and it's now awaiting the cheek pads to be press studded back in, and that has pushed against that mount. That is lovely and secure in place. I actually decided it was easier to leave this hanging out rather than push it all back. It just makes it easier to get the wires and the speaker in place. Now, do you remember those thick pads that I put in earlier into the recess? You don't have to have those, but this does make that sit closer to your ears. And my hearing's not brilliant, so the closer they are to my ears, the better. But you can you don't have to use those pads, because these will go into the recess by themselves. So I've secured the other speaker in using the longer wire opposite. So both the speakers are actually in place on the Velcro pads. Now, as all helmets are different, this one, you can actually pull the lining out inside like so, and it's gone in here all the way through the back of the lining and out the other side, where it's fitted very neatly in here, and all the wires are disguised. So you can either go behind the lining, or you can, on some helmets, wedge it in here down the back. So using the lining as my very best wire hiding friend, the only wire you can now see between the two speakers is this one, where it exits the unit here and goes into the lid. Everything else is behind this lining. So I'm going to pop these cheek pads back in now, get these clicked back into place, click, 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 and we should be ready to go. Now that is a very neat and tidy job. If we just zoom in a little bit here, that's where the wire goes in. It's behind the cheek pad, goes behind the lining, round the other side of the lid to that speaker. And as you can see, a very, very neat job indeed. I've just got to push this back into place a bit more, and then we're ready to pop the unit back, the actual unit itself, back on the mount. And there we have it. I think you'll agree, that looks pretty cool, especially in the white like that. Matches the lid beautifully. And what I've done as well, as a little bit of a bonus, is, you know, the wired boom mic, I've actually tucked that underneath behind the cheek pad as well, so it's all nice and neat. Let's just take a look where the mic pops up inside. Give me 1 second and I'll pop the lid open. There we go. That's the mic inside, right where the mouth goes, and it's ready for action. And there's the finished effect. That's the Sena 60S motorcycle mesh communication system fitted to this helmet. I think it looks a treat. It wasn't difficult to fit. Sena have thought of everything, and they've definitely evolved over the years, adding more and more little bits and bobs to make it easier to fit. Fantastic. So the next video, video number 3, is going to be taking this out with Si, who's now got to fit his, and we'll give him a test, and we'll report back to you in a video for that. So thanks again for watching. If you've got any questions about fitting this or anything else, drop them in the comments and we'll come back to you.